Hello, everybody. Welcome back to class. Good to see everyone. I don't see Mike. Oh, I don't want that view. There we go. Okay, let's start by making the mudra for the mandala, please. Allow for the mandala. Here is the great earth filled with the smell of incense, covered with a blanket of flowers. The great mountain, the four continents, wearing a jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayame. I go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I achieve enlightenment. By the power of the goodness that I do in giving and the rest, may I reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I achieve enlightenment. By the power of the goodness that I do in giving and the rest, may I reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha until I achieve enlightenment. By the power of the goodness that I do in giving and the rest, may I reach Buddhahood. I will reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. Okay, let's do a little rejoicing. Now I've got to figure out how to get the translation. Interpretation, English. Okay, I think I did this right. Okay, who's up first? Let's go with Katrina. So go ahead and rejoice if you have a rejoiceable voice.
We have meeting right now with karmic partner to we have such
I can barely hear you. Hang on. Okay.
right now we have a meeting Sejong with my karmic partner Bila.
So I'm sorry that you're rejoicing in having that meeting. I'm not hearing them.
Yes, I make my diary, but not always good, and we make practice Sejong. I think it's good.
Okay, Anastasia, what do you have to rejoice in?
Всем добрый день. Рада видеть всех. Светлана, есть возможность?
Hello, everyone. I'm glad to see everyone. I'm rejoicing about that yesterday I had a call with my karmic partner, and he shared his joy that he is closer to his purpose, and I am very glad for that. It is about a financial goal. He told that his revenue is growing after each meeting of us. I am trying to coffee meditate on it. It happens not so good very often, but I keep doing it. And also I met with my mother today. It's not often that we can meet each other, and I managed to ask how is she and ask her about her health. I think it's all that I remember for now.
Okay, well, I'm glad you're able to see your mother. That's always a positive thing. Okay, who's next? Cornelia, what do you have to rejoice in?
I was allowed to do toy shopping for the parents in the kindergarten. I have saved money and time, provided fun and games.
Well, good. Good for you. I hope the kids enjoyed it. Okay, Alexander, what do you have to rejoice in?
I'm rejoicing that yesterday at work I was able to analyze a critical problem and also found the root cause for it. In particular, a colleague had made a very sloppy mistake, let's say. And then afterwards, I put my analysis results in a common Teams chat so that the entire team could see it. But shortly afterwards, I was actually thinking that I delete the message again and replaced it with a more general and anonymous error description, so that the colleague and I also wrote the entire text to the colleague in a private chat so that he is not exposed him, or I do not expose him, let's say. And I did this in order to be treated like this myself in the future, and also not to irritate others, so that I also do not have to fight with anger and irritation in the future, and in general for the peace in the world, let's say.
Very good. What do you do? What's your job again?
Programming or information technology, also IT.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing that you bring that up, Alexander. I think I learned a long time ago that instead of criticizing, you try and make it the other person's idea. So they come to you and you want to do something. And instead of saying, we're going to do this, you work it out. So they come to you and say, hey, here's an idea, let's do this. And it's their idea, and you thank them for it. And then that makes them much more interested in working with you. So good. If when you correct someone, it's not so much that you're right, it's that it's the way things need to be done. So it's a hard thing to, as a boss or as a coworker, it's a hard thing to not think, well, I'm right and they're wrong and I win and I'm better. That's not the point. The point is to get the job done properly. Who cares about the credit? But that took me a long time to appreciate. Okay.
Took me also some effort, but I felt more peace inside me.
Good. Well, that's the point between doing that and feeling better about it and knowing how that's going to set your world in the future. That's huge. Very good. Okay. Gina's recording, so she doesn't have to rejoice. Tatiana.
Добрый вечер.
Good evening. Also, I'm apologize that I'm without camera. I wrote about it in the chat. I don't anything to boast. I'm just taking care about my mother, and I'm volunteering in the chat of ACF 5.
Okay, well, that's taking care of your mother is a big rejoiceable. Good. Okay, Claudia. Claudia, there, I don't see a picture. Are you there, Claudia?
Yes, I'm here. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm sorry for being late. Are you doing the rejoicing time?
Yes.
Yay. Today I would like to rejoice in the fact that we have water. I've been struggling to give water to my plants, and we didn't have, and now I found a way to give them water. So yay.
So you don't have water at the house?
In the house, yes, but in the outside, where we have plants and little trees and all of that, we didn't have. But I think so because they cut the water a few days per week, and I didn't notice that today it was the day that it is the day that they cut the water. So I took water from the inside to put it outside.
Okay, so you took care of the plants.
Yeah.
Okay, what do I have to rejoice in? Well, that's a good question. We have a friend who is, it's a long story, he has medical problems and he's going to have to leave the country and go back to Britain. It's a very long story, but before he does that, he's going to need to stay somewhere in the US while he gets his passport. It's a very long story, but we have a small house and we're taking him in and we're going to give him someplace to live and eat and stuff until he goes back to Britain. Then I'm going to escort him back to Britain and help him when he gets back to the country because he has no money. He's a British citizen, but he has nowhere to live once he gets there. So my wife and I and several other people are coming together and trying to raise the money necessary for a plane ticket and initial funds so when he gets to Britain, he has somewhere to stay. It's a huge undertaking in many ways. And having him stay with us in our small house is, well, it's, how can I put it? I'm out of my comfort zone. I mean, we have people come visit for a day or two, but to have someone stay in a small house, he needs to use a handicapped bathroom, which is what I have. Our house really wasn't designed for this, but because I want to have the ability to be taken care of in my future when I need it, we're doing what we need to do to help him and doing it with joy. So it's an incredible opportunity. And because I understand how karma and emptiness work, it's a very powerful chance to make sure that in the future I have the help I need. So I rejoice in that. Yay. Okay. Let's see. Mike isn't here again. I wonder what's going on with Mike. Well, okay, so on to class. We're going to finish our definition of nirvana and go on to some other subjects. This is pretty dry. It's a lot of definition and it's a lot of explanation that, I mean, where is nirvana? When you stop and think about it, is nirvana a place? You don't go to nirvana, you reach nirvana. It's a state of mind, just like samsara. Samsara, we think samsara is out there self-existently, but it's all our projection. So keep that in mind. Nirvana is, to me, a state of mind, and we'll go through and continue our discussion. So there's natural nirvana. We said that was the ultimate nature of everything. It's called nirvana because it has no mental afflictions or negativity and can't cause any, but it's not really, it's a nirvana. It's an antidote to mental afflictions. So then there's nirvana with something left over. You attain nirvana and still have your body left over to finish this life, as well as the karmic seeds to purify. So what does nirvana mean? It's the cessation that comes from individual analysis, which consists of having eliminated mental afflictions in their entirety. So, can a person achieve nirvana at any time in their life? Yes. If they do, would they have any suffering left? Yes, they could have suffering left. They would have ceased all mental afflictions, so they stop making more karma because they don't react negatively, but they still could see suffering in their world. They could still suffer pain. They still have a body to finish this life. So that's with something left over. Nirvana and still have a body to finish this life. It's still going to age. It's still going to die. Their death might appear painful, but their mind will not be suffering nor reacting in a way to cause new suffering. So it's a little hard to imagine that. You have suffering, you see suffering, but you're not suffering. You're not causing suffering. Your response isn't ignorant. So I have trouble conceiving of that. How could I see suffering and not respond to it? Well, I respond to it, but I don't respond to it negatively. The mental affliction, for the most part, well, I'd say for all parts, is a negative reaction. You respond to anger with anger, etc. So you see suffering. I see the suffering in Somalia and Yemen and Maui and Libya, those terrible floods in Libya. But I don't respond with anger. I respond with love and kindness and compassion. I think it's ironic. So we have a world that's warming, and in most cases, that's going to mean desertification, things getting drier and crops not growing. And yet in the desert, they had more water than they've had in months. I think they got a month's worth of rain in one day in Libya. But I just find it interesting that there's places where there's not enough water, and then there's places where there usually isn't enough water, and there's not only water, there's too much water. Okay, so some nirvana was something left over. Nirvana with nothing left over. You attain nirvana and don't have a body after you die, but you still have some karmic seeds. There are no seeds left that will force you to project the heaps of a suffering human physical body. Now, I'm not quite sure what that involves. So you don't have a human body. You don't have a body, period. So you're in nirvana, but nirvana is a state of mind. So I don't have a body. Or the body I have is not physical. Excuse me. There we go. So I'm not quite sure how to describe that, except that you don't have a body, a suffering human body. Now we talk here, no seeds left that will force you to project heaps of a suffering human body. So they're heaps. We need to briefly describe the heaps. There are 5 heaps, and a heap means a pile of parts, like a heap of dirty laundry or a heap of pile of leaves. It has many, many parts. So there are 5 heaps in the discussion of in Buddhism. The heap of form, which is simply your physical body. The heap of feeling, which is every state of mind. You always have feeling, mental function of feeling. It's always pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. And you're never without this. But this heap of feeling doesn't include judgment, just pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Then there's the heap of discrimination, the ability to distinguish between 2 things. This is me, this is not me, this is short, this is long, I like, I don't like. Then the heap of other factors, everything not included in the other 4 heaps, and the heaps of consciousness, the raw awareness. There are 6 types of heaps of consciousness: eye, ear, nose, taste, touch, and mind. So out of the 46 types of mental functions, feeling and discrimination are given a status of their own heap instead of everything not included in the other 4 heaps, because they are the main source of samsara. So how does that work? Well, we have the heap of feeling. We have an opinion. It's pleasant, it's unpleasant, or it's neutral. That drives us to the heap of discrimination. It's pleasant or unpleasant. What do we need to do to get more pleasant What do we need to do to stop the unpleasant? I don't like. We discriminate constantly. Now, there's nothing in the bigger picture, there's nothing wrong with discrimination in the sense you can have an opinion. It's what you do with that opinion that causes a problem with a heap of discrimination. So I learned a long time ago, I was on the board of directors at Diamond Mountain for many years. And I was on the board of directors for several museums. And I learned a long time ago that you have an opinion, you state your opinion, and then you leave it. You have an opinion, you state your opinion, and you don't try and convince people. Because I have found very rarely when I have an opinion and I try and convince somebody of that opinion, let's say at a board meeting, it's very rare that they'll agree in the sense that they'll say, oh, David, you're right. So I gave up needing to have that ego that says I'm right and just put it out there. And that took a long time for me to understand, but it made board meetings much more interesting for me because I would just simply state what I wanted to say. If they had questions, I'd answer them, but I had no attachment to it. My job there was to give ideas, not to force people to take the ideas. So the heap of form, your physical body, the heaps of feeling, the heap of discrimination. Feeling and discrimination are what get us in trouble in samsara. The other factors also contribute to that. The heap of consciousness is how we interact with the world. So there's a discussion of pure and impure heaps. Impure heaps are the ones we have as a result of our past deeds done out of ignorance. They're also called suffering heaps. Lord Buddha has pure heaps. So we have a fourth nirvana that does not stay in the extreme of samsara or extreme of peace. The extreme of samsara is there's never any contentment. We have the 4 sufferings, the 6 sufferings, the 8 sufferings. There's never any contentment. The peace of a lower peace would be lower nirvana, just blissed out. Mental afflictions have ceased, but you're not a Buddha, so you can't really help others. So there's nothing, I shouldn't say, the peace of a lower peace is deceptive. Everything's great, but you haven't done the best you can. So you need to develop the higher nirvana, which is reaching nirvana with bodhicitta in your heart. So what happens is someone, as I understand it, you're in lower nirvana, and according to Geshe Michael, you're not going to become total. If you're in lower nirvana, you're not totally, you don't have bodhicitta in your heart. So it's very important, if you're on the Mahayana track, to develop a strong sense of bodhicitta. So when you reach nirvana, you have bodhicitta in your heart. And that allows you to progress along the 10 bodhisattva bhumis towards your total enlightenment. If you don't have bodhicitta in your heart and you're in nirvana without it, from what Geshe Michael says and the Abhidharma Kosha says, a voice appears. You hear a voice say, it's essentially, you can do better. And you go and you develop your bodhicitta and become a bodhisattva. And then you can go ahead and go to total enlightenment. So Buddha doesn't hang out in either the extreme of samsara or of lower peace. They go to total enlightenment, which is beyond nirvana. So when we use the phrase, do not stay, This describes the nirvana of a totally enlightened being. They stay neither in the extreme of cyclic life or in the extreme of nirvana. Now, what does that really mean? To me, it means a Buddha sees both deceptive and ultimate reality simultaneously. I can't see ultimate reality because I haven't seen it had direct perception of emptiness. And even with the direct perception of emptiness, when I come out of the direct perception, I see things as self-existent, but I know they're not. When you become a Buddha, you don't see things as self-existent anymore. Period. You know they're not. So you're toggling between ultimate truth, things are not self-existent, and then the deceptive truth, because you can see how other beings have deceptive truth in their mind. So you can, as I put it, you can appreciate what the way most of the world reacts, because you understand they're seeing deceptive reality. You don't suffer from that as an enlightened being. You can't be suffering. You had the cessation of mental afflictions when you reach nirvana. So how can they not suffer when they see the troubles in Maui or the floods in Libya? Well, I think the reason they don't suffer is because they know there's a cessation to that suffering. They know there's a way to solve that suffering and remove that suffering. So they don't suffer because they're not like us and going, oh, what can I do about Maui or Libya? They know, and they do. They know that what they can do to relieve the suffering is to teach Buddha's path, and that will take people away from their suffering. The highest school says you're compelled to leave lower nirvana in order to achieve total enlightenment. So you might as well make it your goal from the start. The highest nirvana is the total elimination of mental afflictions and all the obstacles to omniscience. We're going to be talking about the 10 Bodhisattva bhumis later. So what do we need to get to nirvana? We need the training in the wisdom of emptiness. Basically, the 3 extraordinary trainings. But before that, we need the 3 moralities. The first morality we discussed before. The first morality is a morality of not doing bad things. The second is doing only good. And the third is doing both 1 and 2 for the benefit of all beings. The extraordinary training are the extraordinary training of bodhicitta, meditation, bodhicitta, and correct view. So here we're talking the extraordinary training of correct view or emptiness. So we need to constantly ask this question: does a self exist? Yes, I exist. I'm teaching. You exist. You're listening. You interact with people all the time. You exist, but not in the way you think. You first get this intellectually, and then you become a master of the extraordinary training of wisdom. Obviously, the culmination of the extraordinary training of wisdom is the direct perception of emptiness. But what we're trying to do with these classes, the courses, and all the teaching is to develop an intellectual sense of concept of emptiness and the need for high morality. So you may not, how can I put this? We should constantly be working on understanding emptiness in all its facets. So that's why I constantly remind myself during the day, it's not my karma it's not my karma, but it's my karma so. Constantly find yourself as you're going through your day, catch yourself. You're going to be thinking it's my karma, but it's my karma, but It's your karma so. That to me is the training and the wisdom of emptiness. You can do your book, you can do your practice in the morning, you can do many, many things. But if all the time during the day, you're not thinking it's my karma so instead of my karma but, you're missing the point. So for instance, helping his friend David, it's really confusing. His name's David, my name's David, and we have to decide which David's talking about which David. It makes it difficult. But we refer to each other as the good David and the bad David. And yeah, I think I'm the good David. And I think he's the bad David. And he thinks the reverse of that. We work together in the kitchen at Diamond Mountain, and we're both about the same height, about the same age, and have about the same sense of humor. The distinguishing feature for him is he has a British accent and I don't. So people could figure out which David they were talking to. Anyway, back to David. If I want to think it's my karma, but it's my karma to have David have a problem that needs solving, but it's not my problem, versus it's my karma to see David with his problem. So if I want to have that problem not become a problem in my life, I need to respond with love and compassion. Then I can set the karmic seeds for that to happen for me in the future. So it's really hard to emphasize this and get people to really understand. But go through your day looking for the movement of the mind that says it's my karma, but catch yourself and try really hard to stop doing that. You're going to continue to do it, but if you work on it, if you recognize it and you work on it, you'll find that less and less of that happens. Then you go, at the same time, you go to my karma, the how and the why. If you team that together with my karma but versus my karma so, you can analyze everything you're doing and come to the conclusion that it's your karma so, period. Okay. 3 things need to be present to get into nirvana. You need to have the training of wisdom of emptiness. You need to do so under the influence of morality and concentration. Keep the 10 virtuous deeds. Develop excellent skills in meditation. And third, get used to what you've already realized about emptiness by habituating the mind. So what does that mean? I see that as meaning take your day-to-day, everything that happens in your day, and as you're thinking, it's my karma so instead of my karma but, you're taking the realizations you've had about emptiness and you're making it something that you're constantly thinking about. You're constantly worried about. And if you do that, you'll reach a point, I think you'll reach a point where you develop enough merit, enough virtue to have the direct perception of emptiness. Just thinking about it, just reading about it won't be enough. You've got to do the action, the serving others, and create the virtue to have the direct perception of emptiness. Yes, you have to have meditative skills. And I'm suffering from that because it's hard for me to meditate now with my tremor. So I'm focusing more of my attention on serving others so I generate the merit necessary to have the ability to meditate properly. Never make the mistake of thinking, oh, I'll get to my meditation abilities later. I am too busy now. I just use myself as an example. It's very difficult for me to meditate now because of my tremor. Doesn't mean I can't, it just means it's very hard. I never thought 10, 15 years ago, it never occurred to me I wouldn't be able to meditate. So for those of you that are much younger than I am, what am I? I'm 70. Don't waste your time. Don't put it off. Don't put it off. If you can't meditate long, do like Eshe Michael says. Start at 5 minutes, add a minute every week, and you'll find you can meditate for an hour. I used to be able to meditate for an hour pretty sweetly before I developed this tremor. Okay. There are 4 classic resulting steps along the Buddha's path. You may have heard this term before, the stream enterer. First step on your way out of samsara, the direct perception of emptiness and becoming an Arya. The once returner, reaching the point where you take rebirth in samsara one more time. The non-returner, one who does not come back to the 6 desire realms again involuntarily. And that's the key. Buddhas reappear in samsara as emanations or as rebirth, but they do so because they want to. A non-returner is one who does not come back to the 6 desire realms again involuntarily. An arhat is a photostoyer, also called a photostroyer, a being who has attained nirvana via the direct perception of emptiness through developing finely tuned morality and concentration. They're called a photostroyer because they've destroyed their mental afflictions. So, it's again a very short class. Let me just take a look to make sure I've covered the homework questions. Okay. The difference between nirvana with something left over and nirvana with nothing left over. Something left over means you achieved nirvana, but you still possess a body that was produced by the impure heaps or karma. Nirvana with nothing left over means you've achieved nirvana and no longer possess such a body. There's a kind of nirvana called nirvana which does not stay. What is the meaning of does not stay? It does not stay describes the nirvana of a totally enlightened being who stays neither in the extreme of cyclic life or in the extreme of peace, which is the lower nirvana. What is a photostroyer and what are the 3 results of the path that leads up to it? An arhat is someone who has permanently ended their mental afflictions due to their perception of emptiness in the path of seeing. The stream enterer has perceived emptiness directly, but is not yet a once returner. Once returner, a person who has gone higher than stream enterer by eliminating more of their mental afflictions to the point where they only have to take one more birth in the desire realm. And a non-returner is basically a Buddha. Described as 3 main parts of the path for achieving nirvana. Become a master of the extraordinary training of wisdom. Make sure this extraordinary training is imbued with the first 2 of the extraordinary trainings, morality and concentration. And become extremely familiar with the realization of emptiness, which you've already had. So it all comes down to such a simple, so incredibly simple and so incredibly hard. It comes down to gaining the virtues and the skill, meditative skill necessary to see emptiness directly. That is the key. And the key to doing that is service and developing your meditative skills. And service comes in so many different ways. Seeing your mother that you haven't seen for a while, making her happy, that's incredible service to a powerful karmic object. Taking care of your kids, taking care of your siblings, incredible, powerful karmic object. My taking care of my friend David, no matter how inconvenient it may be for me, is incredibly powerful, but it's only incredibly powerful if I look at it with wisdom and don't just do it because I like him. I'm helping him. I'm helping him, and at the same time, I'm making and setting the seeds for me to have the help I need. So it's great to think and study about emptiness. It's great to do deeds for other people. But if you do it with wisdom and you dedicate it, that's what makes it powerful. And that's what's going to make it possible for you to get what you need in the future. So this is another pretty short class. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. This is pretty dry material. It's, well, that's about all I can say. It's pretty dry. But a lot of this is the kind of thing we'll talk about in the future. So you've had an introduction to nirvana. When we talk about nirvana in the future, you'll have a much better idea of what we're talking about. Okay, let's dedicate the goodness of this. By the goodness of what I've just done, may all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. Now, I do have one request. I'm undergoing a procedure tomorrow to evaluate my heart. And the doctors think I'm having some sort of partial heart failure. Apparently, it's incredibly unpleasant. Now, I can handle pain. That's not the issue. I can handle the discomfort, I hope. But I'd love to have you all thinking good thoughts about me and the procedure. I do it tomorrow at 2:40 p.m. Arizona time. So I'm not asking anybody to stay up until midnight to think good thoughts. But if you have a chance during the day, send some good thoughts my way. I'd appreciate it. And I'll let you know on Tuesday. I see the doctor on Monday, so hopefully Tuesday I'll have some idea what's going on. I'm not scared. I'm a little apprehensive because from what I understand from people that have done it, it's just incredibly uncomfortable. What they do is you're laying, I can't run on a treadmill anymore. So they lay me down and getting ready to go into a CAT scan machine. And I believe they inject epinephrine, adrenaline into me. And that gets my heart going very fast. And they do some analyses of the heart pumping really fast to see if it's working properly. And they've got to keep the heart pumping fast until their analytical equipment tells them what they need to know. So apparently that can be a short period of time or it can be a long period of time. So I guess I'll find out. And I'll let everybody know. Thank you. Good to see everybody again. Have a great weekend. And who's this young man?
Santiago.
Oh, he's shy. Is Santiago? Is that his name? Okay, everybody. Have a good weekend. We'll see you Tuesday, provided something catastrophic doesn't happen tomorrow. But if it does, I'm in a cardiology specialty clinic. So hopefully they'll be able to take care of me. Okay. Bye-bye.
Спасибо большое.
Thank you very much.
No,
Thank you very much.
you're all very welcome. It's my pleasure.